The Kramer Show on NewsTalk 101.
Scott Major's with us this morning. Scott Major from Major Peruis and the Storm Help Team. You know, for the past hour, we've been talking about the hearings yesterday and some of the things that were said back and forth. Scott, I get irritated when I listen to it all and see it all because it's just a bunch of theater. We're not going to learn anything new. There's not going to be any. I mean, this is a high stakes impeachment hearing, but we're hearing the same old thing. I was wanting to get your initial thoughts from the first day yesterday.
It's unfortunate that we are spending our time talking about, invented ways to pitch a mantra, pitch a statement that you can just repeat because you can get people to dislike the president because apparently you think you can't beat him in an election, so you think you have to remove him. And it's just unfortunate that you can manipulate and prostitute the system the way Adam Schiff and some of the Democrats have done in a manner that is horrific. How would it be different if somebody came out and said, I secretly know that I was there when Adam Schiff met with the confidential informant, and I'm not telling you who I am, but I know that he not only talked to that person, but he conspired with them to steal tens of millions of dollars from the U.S. government. Why wouldn't the media run with that story, whether or not it was true or not? What's happened is it has turned into such a circus because the Democrats and most of the left side of that party, not all Democrats, have decided that this branding, this repetitive story works. And the reason why it works is because if you ask people who are out there who don't understand the truth, who are ignorant, if you hear enough times that somebody is a bad person, you might start to believe them. They have gone out and they have asked people in the community, conservative radio announcers and organizations that have gone out in the community and said, can you tell me what Trump did that was improper in Ukraine? If you asked 100 people, 99 don't even know what Ukraine is. They think it's some apparatus that Caterpillar makes. Having said that, nobody can point to what he's done wrong. And then when you ask the same people whether they think Biden has done something wrong, somebody who, whether you like him or not, has bragged about extorting the Ukrainian government to drop charges or drop an investigation against the company his son was working for in order to get millions, billions of dollars from the United States. The people say, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When you ask them why, they can't explain. And so the Democratic strategists believe quite ably that this is working because when you keep saying impeachment and you keep saying Trump's a liar and you keep saying he's doing horrible secret things, many people buy into that because they heard it and they assume that it is true or it must be true because we're hearing it a lot of times. And unfortunately, this is a terrible thing for America. Put aside the fact that if any of them, any of the 435 representatives, any of the idiotic, underlying idiotic, so-called experts who are on television legal experts claiming all kinds of nonsense. If any of them had read the Constitution, they would know that under the Constitution, this person is not a whistleblower. They are not entitled to anonymity. That's just the truth. The president is not subject to the whistleblower statute. That's just the truth. They would understand that the president makes foreign policy, not these people who are testifying who are ambassadors. They have to follow whatever foreign policy the president makes. That's the truth. When you realize that the two people who testified yesterday didn't even meet and speak to the president, that's the truth. When you realize that you have people who are claiming that hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay is somehow more valuable evidence than the actual direct evidence, you hear the lunacy of people. So if you observed a car crash, you would be less reliable than the person you told who told another person who then told another person what happened at the car accident. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand how ridiculously absurd that is. But that is what's going on. The law provides that you cannot have a trial to impeach a president without having due process. Isn't it interesting that the only person in the history of Congress who hasn't been provided due process is the President of the United States? Why would anybody fear the Republicans or anybody, other Democrats, calling whatever witnesses they want? Why would we have childlike, absurd theater of having one person control the rules and change the rules to fit their narrative? You just don't have to be that intelligent to understand the lunacy of this, or understand that in the end it will likely help Trump. But for a lot of voters, for a lot of people, that just, it's all noise, and they don't even know what yesterday was about. Nobody can even figure out what it is that they're complaining about. The reality is that when you hear something over and over again, you're sort of encouraging your base. You're sort of saying, you see, he's terrible. We wouldn't be doing this unless he was terrible. And because he's so terrible, you should, impeach him or join the train so that next year when the train comes rolling about and you have to vote, who cares if you don't know why you don't like him? Who cares if you have no evidence? You've heard enough times he's some sort of a bad guy. When you think about it, why every African American in America wouldn't vote for Trump because he has the lowest employment numbers for them in history? Why every Hispanic American wouldn't vote for him because he had the lowest, unemployment in history? That's a fact. Why people wouldn't want to vote for someone who has provided the African American community with the highest property ownership. Taxes are down. The market is up. People are better off now than they were 4 years ago. If you go to the Democratic communities like San Francisco, it is disgusting there. This is Nancy Pelosi's hometown. And again, I don't personally know the woman. Maybe she's a nice woman. But her city is in horrific shape. If you go to Chicago, there are murders every single day. sometimes 5 and 10 and 20 incidents of violence every single day of the week in this Democratic stronghold. Again, why don't they spend time? Why don't we all get together and spend time and clean up these homeless areas? Why don't we spend time and figure out ways to reduce crime? Why don't we spend time to rebuild the dams and the bridges that are in such need of repair? Why don't we spend time to address the opioid crisis? Why don't we spend time to deal with higher pharmaceutical-related medicine prices? Why don't we spend time to deal with the immigration crisis that's overwhelming us, that has cost us nearly $300 million? $300 million already, according to Yale and other very democratic organizations who have done the data. Why don't we spend time on building a wonderful country and teaching our youth that truth matters, that character matters, that integrity matters? That, to me, would be a healthier way to approach this. And if you disagree with Trump, if you don't like him, if you think he's a terrible guy, okay, you are free to express that. You are free to say that. But to lie and manipulate a system into what we saw yesterday is such a tragedy. And I keep saying this, but our youth is being taught that you should lie because it gets you somewhere. Our youth is being taught that if you make a bunch of false statements, as long as you're on TV or you get yourself in the limelight, it doesn't matter because you've succeeded. The idea that anybody could stand up, whether you're Elizabeth Warren or anybody else, and make the absolutely preposterously false statement that every single person can go to college for free and that all student loans will be forgiven and that you're going to have free health care for all. The idea that you could say that and say that that is possible is so offensive. It should be a disqualifier from the beginning, and it makes your blood boil, because it's okay if you want to try to work towards a program that provides more health care, but to just make false statements that you can never employ, to say you're going to tax the rich 70%. How many African Americans and Hispanics and left-wing people are going to be ready to pay 70% in taxes? How many people want to pay double the amount for gas? How many people? Because let me tell you something. To raise $50 to $100 trillion, the statistics show you got to tax the entire world 70%. Where are you getting this money from? So again, I would just say that to me, it makes more sense to be able to have intelligent and thoughtful discourse, even if you disagree, rather than the charade that is going on. And I just will leave you with this. I don't understand why a lot of the media is also lying and spinning this. I don't get it. I don't understand why they think it benefits them to create that sense and to have people distrust the entire media process. I don't understand why you have to watch shows that just distort things and make false statements, and then when they're wrong, there's no consequence to them. I don't know how our society is benefited by that stuff. And again, I don't mind if somebody gets up editorializing, but not the news anchors who are saying there's unequivocal, concrete evidence of this. There's Russia collusion. There's absolute lying. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I often wonder.
In that way.
I often wonder if and by the way, I mean, I concur with everything that you've just said. You outlined it just absolutely brilliantly. And I by the way, you mentioned the word branding. You mentioned the word noise. And that's what it is. And you're right. Drip, 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 drip. If you say it enough and do it enough and keep repeating it, there will be people that follow it, and that's how they, form their opinions. But what you just said, I think about often because, I wonder if the left-leaning media is designed the way it is as a reflection of the people, or is the thought from society a reflection that casts on the media? And I often think about that. I can't figure that out either, because how does it benefit the media to get on and portray it this way over and over and over again? What does that do? I'm with you. I don't get that.
I think it is a bunch of wealthy individuals that are controlling the messaging. I don't believe it is the public that has decided that we should spend thousands of hours about a Russia collusion hoax, and then we should get the media to back us. You know, it's interesting. I wonder whether or not these media types should be registered, you know, under the federal regulations as lobbyists, because they're absolutely working with the Democratic Party in a quid pro quo without properly disclosing that they are giving value to the Democratic Party without getting properly paid, without registering. But having said that, it's just unfortunate. And when you see, take like a CNN where they've been caught in lie after lie after lie, and they've been caught from everything from these kinds of Russia hoax false statements to covering up an Epstein story for ABC. You have to say to yourself, you know, the only reason why that's happening is not because all the public really wants Epstein's story to be covered up. When you listen to Amy Robach, who's who's like the talented lead ABC, correspondent, decorated person who can open up the story at Epstein, and they bury it.
Right.
And they catch her saying it's awfully good. Do you think that the American public wants pedophiles and people who rape 12-year-old and 13-year-old girls and bring presidents and officials out to these islands so they can sleep with girl after girl who's been, brought in there improperly? Do you think that the public wants to cover up that? I don't think so. And I think if you asked 100 people, whether they were Democrats or not, whether they thought a guy like Epstein should be exposed, I think 100 of them would say yes. And so I personally think it is not something that the public is doing. I think it is something that in the media, for some reason, they have these left-wing views that I just don't understand.
Hey,
I'm not following how...
Well, let me break, and we'll come back with more, Scott. Stand by.
Sure.
Trying to suck less and less every day.
Ooh, you suck!
More of the Kramer Show coming up next on NewsTalk at 101.
This is Stephen Hawking. You are listening to the Kramer Show on NewsTalk at 101.
Oh, that's not right. 726. Scott Major with us. Line of the day so far. Most people in America think that the Ukraine is some kind of caterpillar apparatus. Oh, man, God, was that brilliant. Scott Major from Major Peru is with us. Occasionally I like to when we have Scott on I like to ask him about politics, especially when there's something big in the news. And because your take is really brilliant. It's right on, and I think that you're right about the branding and the noise, and this is theater, and that is absolutely what it is. And you also have people too that are commentators on some of the conservative networks that I have seen say some of the most horrid things about our president. And the latest one is Judge Napolitano from Fox News, who is incessantly saying over and over again that Trump should be arrested. This guy, I don't know what happened. I guess he's still bitter because Donald Trump didn't want to nominate him for Supreme Court. I guess that's the gist of why Napolitano has gotten nutty.
You're right. And I'll tell you, again, we should just be honest with what we say and be supportive of what we should say. Do you think that Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, do you think that they're going to be willing to pay 40 or 50 or 60% of their income to the government? Do you think that all the people that are these tech tycoons that are out west that purportedly are behind the Democratic Party, purportedly, do you think they're going to be willing to pay that? Do you think Warren Buffett is going to volunteer to pay, $1 billion in taxes, or $50 billion in taxes, or $100 billion in taxes? Do you think that all of the movie stars and all of the radical people on television, do you think they're going to be willing to back Elizabeth Warren and pay upfront money? In fact, I'm surprised that all of them are not stepping up to the plate now and saying, we so believe in what they stand for. We so believe in what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren stands for that we're going to voluntarily pay our share of taxes now. We're going to voluntarily pay the double amount of taxes that we're paying now because we want to show the American people that we believe in this system. Not only are they never going to do that, but as you well know, there's never going to be a system where that occurs for those wealthy people. So all of this falsity and nonsense just doesn't help people. And if you think about what's going on now, the worst part of it is, at a time when we're trying to bring people together, you have such divisiveness that is forced upon you.
Scott,
you can't even express your opinion.
This is the Kramer Show on Panama City's information station, News Talk at 101.